Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's webinar on our mAssetTag solution and tracking assets in real time. A few housekeeping items we'd like to go over. If you have any questions for our speaker or our product manager, please type them into the Q&A box at any point during the webinar. We will try to answer as many questions as we can at the end of the webinar. If we do not get to your question today, we will be providing answers by email tomorrow. This webinar will be recorded, and we will share a copy of the recording by email. So with that being said, I'm going to get started by introducing our expert. Laura Dugas is a solution engineer at Innovaptive. Prior to joining Innovaptive, she was a pre-sales consultant for SAP Solex Partner and has over 8 years experience in enterprise asset management. Laura, thank you for joining us today. We are looking forward to hearing your insights. So with that being said, I'm going to hand it off to you.
Thanks, Ashley, for the introduction. So good morning, everyone. Today, I will be introducing a little bit about who Innovaptive is and what we do as a company. I'll cover the common business challenges we hear from customers like you and what the typical asset tracking processes that many companies are using today. Then we'll talk about what a modern fixed asset tracking process can look like and ways we can achieve those better processes with better tools. And the goal of all of this is being a positive outcome and impact on your organization. And then finally, we'll wrap up with that Q&A. So about Innovaptive. So we are what we call a connected workforce solution provider. Innovaptive is a certified SAP partner, and we focus our solutions on asset-intensive customers. We do this because we provide a suite of applications that enable field workers to connect directly to their SAP systems in the field. Our apps are very user-friendly, and our apps are typically used on native iOS and Android devices. And our solutions include what we're discussing today for fixed asset tracking management, but we also have mobile solutions for operator rounds, maintenance activities, warehouse and inventory management, digital forms, as well as a visual planning and scheduling tool. But really what I'm most proud of is what we call our rapid app configuration engine. We call it RACE, and it's really part of each of our mobile solutions. It's kind of the foundation behind each of our apps. And it's a patented low to no code configuration tool, and it allows super users to make changes to our apps on the fly. And this results in a much lower IT burden on customers than most of the SAP products that you'll find in the market. Our apps are fully offline capable. They're directly connected to backend SAP with no third-party databases needed, and really they're just very user-friendly. And really without user adoption, what do you have? So user adoption is really kind of the focus of all of our tools. So let's talk about some of the most common fixed asset related business challenges that we see in our customers. So many customers like y'all have a lot of manual processes related to asset tracking. There's a lot of daunting and often paper-based processes. We have a lot of customers that have audit failures, which are common due to access control and other issues during the asset tracking and inventory process. The counting and tracking processes are typically not integrated into backend SAP directly, which gives a lot of room for error. And then we have the labor burden. So labor resources used in asset tracking and verification have to use this antiquated paper-based process, which is also another thing that leads to big inaccuracies in your asset management. So to overcome these challenges, we really need to look at new and more effective tools to help organizations save millions of dollars related to their assets. And we really need to modernize the systems that are used to achieve better outcomes in midst of increasing regulatory and financial requirements. So a lot of people think, we have this, SAP fixed asset module, but we're still having all these problems. Why? So let's take a look at how we can do better in our fixed asset tracking. So you see on the screen, we have the typical parties involved in what most of our customers and probably many of you are using today, which is a central finance or local finance team. And then you have non-finance resources that you have to pull into your asset tracking process. So typically, we start with a finance person that creates a spreadsheet. Then they're going to email that to a local plant resource. That plant resource is going to probably print out a spreadsheet and put it on a clipboard. And this is pretty much where the room for error begins. A local finance person may be around to validate and reconcile before the data gets pushed back in another manual spreadsheet to central finance. Sometimes those records are validated or reconciled or pushed back out to the field for an error corrections, and then the data eventually gets into FAP. Obviously, in this process, there are a lot of delays, and there are no real-time connections to back-end FAP, so there's a lot of room for error. Unfortunately, many of you and many of our customers are still doing things this way today. All in all, the final result is everyone gets notified that the process is complete, and a lot of times this is by audit failures or financial reports that are inaccurate and really unhelpful. And you can see that on average, 6 manual touch points are involved in the asset tracking and inventory process. So interestingly, FAP really does provide a comprehensive fixed asset register and a system of records, but you still really need a solution that connects your back-end FAP to the field and physical assets in a digital way. So even though FAP is doing a really good job as far as data storage, and they've really done well at evolving their product for the asset registry, there's really no good way for you to complete your process to get that data into FAP. So how do we get where we want to go? So this is a different way of looking at the previous process. And you can see the yellow line represents the manual paper flow that I described in the previous slide. And this probably resonates with a lot of you. And you can see all of the manual touch points along the way. What we really want to do, and our goal, is to straighten this line out. We want to get from point 1 to point 4 without all the manual touch points. So how can we do that? How can we go straight from SAP through a handheld device and straight back into finance and into SAP, eliminating everything else? So I think one way to get there is to adopt a simple and capable mobile solution. And we need to talk about what the key capabilities and features in a solution like this are that you need to look for whenever you're shopping for a product to make this process digital and bring it into the 21st century. So some of the key features and capabilities that you need to look for are an easy way for your finance or back office team to schedule these inventory counts. You need your tool in the field to enable digital transactions and enable photo capability. You want to be able to scan and tag assets in the field, either using the native capability in the device, which is really beneficial because it reduces hardware costs, or even use an external device to do scanning if necessary. You want to have reconciliation functionality, so you need your back office and your field people to be able to talk to each other in a digital way and reduce the back and forth paper and Excel push and pull. You want to control the creation of new assets, and this is really all about auditing. So when somebody in the field wants to add a new asset that's missing, you need a way to track who added it, why they added it, and have somebody in your finance team control the assets that go into your system. You want to be able to look at real-time status of the process, and then obviously have some nice dashboards based on your KPIs so that you can tell how you're doing in general. So I'm going to go over each of the features, the key features that you should look for, and we'll start out with asset scheduling. So a solution like Innovative's mAssetTag really need to have an easy user interface for the back office person to put the batches together to push the assets out onto these devices. So you need to be able to create new batches, you need to be able to assign and add assets to existing batches, and you really just want to do all of this to control the process from the back office. The actual devices in the field that are being used need to be highly enabled, and they need to be configurable. So we want to provide a tool to our physical plant resources that's easy to use. for them to receive the batches. They can update the status of assets, readily add newly found assets. They need to be able to also report assets that are no longer there, which are our ghost assets. They need to be able to do things like capture pictures and scan barcodes. And I think most of all, a key feature of a really good tool is configurability. So we need to be able to configure the user interface for the different types of assets or different types of plants and different types of users. And we need to be able to do that readily so that the user experience is a great one, so that they'll adopt the process and they will return you with more accurate inventory counts. And so the benefits of digitizing this process with the end user is really enabling automation, removing all paper, and reducing errors. So ideally, the devices need to be able to scan and tag assets. So they need to be able to ideally use the existing functionality of the device to scan barcodes and QR codes and even RFIDs if necessary through the native camera. And they need to be able to be part of the process of adding a new asset and adding a tag to an asset, capturing that barcode and associating that barcode back with your backend SAP Asset Master. Again, you want to be able to use the camera at the same time to attach pictures and obviously have the same configurability of the screens. And I think the whole concept here with tagging, using barcodes, using OCR scanning capability in any situation is going to enable high quality data capture and less room for error. Another thing it's going to do, again, is automate. So once you have all of your assets tagged, then you can use the native cameras in the devices to do the inventory counts in a much more expedited way the next time around. So providing an asset reconciliation dashboard for the back office and a way to communicate between these batches for field and office staff is a huge benefit and a huge need. So we want to be able to digitally review and update in one place, provide feedback back and forth so that we can shorten the cycle of the inventory count and make it less burdensome on everybody. It's going to enable more real-time error fixes and really just reduce the overall time burden on employees and increase productivity. It's also, again, going to go back to that audit and internal control enabling. So it's going to help your back office and your finance team really be in control of the process. So last but not least, I think we want to always have kind of KPIs, visual dashboards. We want to give visibility to management on inventory progress and status. And having these dashboards that are configurable based on your KPIs for your inventory process is huge, so that people can get a snapshot of what's going on and where they really stand and how we're going to comply with audits. So this new modern asset tracking process, it's going to include the same parties that we saw before in our old manual process. It's going to include central and local finance and non-finance and plant personnel. But instead of all of the paper interactions, we're going to start from an intuitive Fiori-based batch scheduler, and those batches are received on handheld devices. The assets that are already labeled with QR barcodes or even RFIDs can be scanned, and inventory can be taken readily in an automated fashion. Whenever we're out in the field doing our work and we're scanning, taking in data, and barcoding the assets, we can also do things like geocoding and taking photos of assets. And all of that data is going to be saved in a manner that can be uploaded once the verification process is complete directly into backend SAP. Finally, we're going to have the back office and the finance people review these assets. They're going to use those dashboards in that asset cockpit to do their analysis and their validation. We can have management run KPIs and metrics and use the dashboards to visualize and see the progress of the process. Finally, back-end SAP is updated. All in all, there are 0 manual touch points. There's no paper, and we have a perfect audit trail. Every step along the way is documented in the technology, and we have records to keep so that we can say who did what and when, and so we can comply with our audit requirements. So it's really clear, I think, after we've seen the before and the after, that modern asset management systems are antiquated most of the time nowadays. I think most customers like you are still doing the process very similar to what we saw, but we're seeing more and more regulations and financial constraints, and we really need to be better, and we need to be more compliant, and we need to put tools in place that can do this. There are really so many business challenges that I'm sure you can relate to, but a modern solution really can save you millions. Some of the things that we see our customers realize are reduced tax and insurance burdens, increased audit compliance, improved financial reporting, and really happier and more productive employees, especially during audits. So that's all I have for today. Ashley, back to you.
Thank you, Laura. We do have a couple questions that came in, if you don't mind answering those.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, the first one, what do you recommend for barcode labels? Does your solution support pre-printed labels?
So our solution supports either pre-printed labels or labels that you print as you go. We also have consultants that work with some of the most common barcode manufacturers, and what we typically do is we work with each specific client and figure out what type of assets need which type of tags, and we work with our barcode suppliers to make recommendations so that the clients can procure those tags as needed. Great.
Thank you for that. Here's the second one. What technology is this built on?
So our desktop solution is built on Fiori, and our mobile solution is native to iOS, Android, or Windows Mobile.
Great, thank you. Here's another one that came in. Does your solution work offline?
Yes, our solution does work offline. So all of our apps are designed to have full functionality on or offline. So to give a brief answer, all of the kind of configuration data is stored in the device so that everything that you need to function fully in the app when it's offline is there, and it works fully until you go back online. And then once if you're walking around a plant and you're offline and then you walk back into the office, it's going to connect to the internet. And our apps are designed to sync back to SAP in the order that they need to for the transaction to complete properly.
Great, thank you so much. That is all the questions that came in for today. If anybody else has another question, feel free to email us and or follow us on our website. You can get some answers there as well. Thank you again, Laura. We really appreciate all of your insight.
No problem. Thank you, everyone. Have a good day.
We're going to send them.